Hello. So, have you ever made a decision about something and you felt comfortable about it initially, but then maybe a few minutes later or maybe the next day or so you felt uncomfortable? Maybe your spirit just wasn't settling with that decision that was made. Well, I've been there. And so today I would love to share with you guys a few moments of my time as I sit down and discuss something that happened with me in 2015 when I was pregnant with my last child. I want to explain to you sometimes how to hear from the Lord and know it's from Him, opposed to just thinking it's ourselves or that we're just imagining things. So if you would join me today, I would love to sit down and share this story, this testimony of God's grace and His mercy. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Lucretia, and here on my channel we discuss all things faith, home, and lifestyle. So today, you all, I want to do a sit down to talk about my obedience to God saved my life. So let me first of all start off here reading a scripture from the Bible. This is from the King James Version of 1 Samuel 15th chapter, the 22nd verse. It says, "And Samuel said, Had the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams." So I wanted to start there because what stands out to me in this particular sit down is going to be my obeying was better than sacrifice. So you guys, back in 2015, let me just start from January 2015. I found out that I was going to have my third child, and my husband and I were honestly not in a good position to have a child at that time. We were still trying to find our footing in Houston, Texas. So we had moved to Houston the year before in 2014. And during that time, we were just trying to establish ourselves, trying to make sure that we were building, and so later in the year, I know at the end of December, I started feeling different. And so I didn't get my menstrual, and I just kind of figured that was off because I never missed my menstrual. So in January of 2015, I did a test at home, which, determined that I was pregnant. During that time, I decided to go ahead and schedule an appointment with an OBGYN doctor. And I just did some research online. I wasn't familiar with the Texas area, or the Houston, Texas area. So I just did some research, and I came across a good doctor who was on the other side of town, which is in Houston's language, probably about 45 minutes to an hour away from me. And this is not including traffic. So I made the appointment. I went to the doctor based off the great reviews I saw online. And once I got there, I met with the doctor and her staff, and they were really, really sweet people. And the doctor was very nice, seemed very knowledgeable. And I had nothing to be suspicious about in terms of not having her as my doctor. So everything went well. The only thing that kind of, I guess, kind of bothered me just a tad was the distance of how far she would be from me and my home. So but I didn't let that bother me so much. I was like, okay, well, that'll work out. So once I got in the car and I called my husband, and I just kind of walked him through how the appointment went, and just telling him everything went good, but just something in me just was unsettled. I just kept feeling like something was off. And I can't remember, you guys, at this moment if I actually told my husband what was off, but I remember getting off the phone with him. And on my ride back home, which was a long ride, I was able to think. And the Lord I just heard something in my spirit saying to find you another doctor that's closer to home. And I was like, okay, I just went to this doctor, and I spent money and everything to see her. So I was like, okay. I went home, and I didn't really put much emphasis on it the remainder of the day, but it came back up in my spirit a couple days later. It just kept coming up in my spirit. So I said, okay, let me find another doctor, because I really liked the doctor that I had met. So but I knew that she could not deliver in the area at one of the hospitals in my area. And so I went on ahead and I just started looking at other doctors. I really didn't feel like it. I'm gonna be honest, in my own flesh, I just didn't feel like having to research a new doctor and go through that whole process again. So, but I started looking at doctors. I asked a couple people that were previously living in Houston before us if they knew of anybody, and I don't think I really got any great feedback. So I just started doing research on my own, and then, you know, doctors in my general area. So I did, and I was able to find a pretty good doctor that had good ratings online. So I scheduled an appointment and I went in, and that doctor was really nice. Her staff was nice, and I say really nice, but I guess at first I was like, you know, I guess I was trying to make the comparison with her from the previous doctor. So, but she was a good doctor. She seemed to have been very knowledgeable. Her background skills were really good. And, you know, there were some things that she was very informative with me about that I really didn't get that information in previous pregnancies, but she seemed very knowledgeable. So I talked to my husband again, and we decided that we will go ahead and, you know, we'll make her our doctor for our third child. So as time went along, you guys, I was working a job that wasn't far from home at this particular time, but it was very stressful. And under that stress, I felt like the mental stress of it brought down physical stress on the body. And I would deal with some pains once, you know, like if I was sitting at my desk and once I stood up, I was dealing with some things, just pains that were hurting in my lower area. And then I would call my doctor's office and kind of explain to them what was going on. And I just felt like I wasn't treated initially on that one-to-one basis, but they did give me some advice of some things to do, which were to exercise and to, you know, work out a little bit, not heavy, but just to, you know, move around and, you know, be more active. And so that's what I did. And I just also make sure I was aware of the things that I was eating. But the stress was still there, and it just seems like the more stress I accrued, it just felt bad. So as time went along, the pain got a little bit better, but I could still tell it was there. So as I approached, I'll say like the first part of August, my husband and I began talking about ways that we could try to, you know, diminish some things so that I can go ahead and, you know, submit my time to resign from that position. I think it was like the week prior to us, we had started talking about like when my last day would be and all of these different things. But I would say it was August 14th. No, it was August 12th. My sister-in-law called, and we had gotten into the bed, and she had called and she wanted to, you know, she FaceTimed and she wanted to see my stomach area. So I showed her my stomach, and once I did, my son, it's like it had been some weird movements. I mean, some things, I mean, it was like he was almost poking. There was something poking that I had never seen before, and it was so aggressive. And so that was like the last experience that I experienced before the next morning. The next morning around 2 o'clock, I remember getting up out the bed and going to the bathroom. And once I went to the bathroom, you guys, it was a normal bathroom routine. I tried to get back into the bed, but I couldn't fully get in the bed before I felt this pain. It was a horrible pain that hit my stomach. It did not feel like contractions that I had before. My water hadn't broken, so it was really, really strange. Immediately, I just felt like something was wrong. I woke my husband up and I told him we have to get to the emergency room. So as I attempted to get my clothes on, I barely got anything on. I just was able to get a dress on over my head, and that was that. And as I approached from my bedroom to the living room, I remember falling to my knees, hitting the floor, because I just couldn't walk no more. The pain was unbearable. I couldn't walk, and it felt like I was losing all the strength from the waist down. So afraid. My husband ended up taking me went on ahead and took me to the hospital in which I was going to deliver our child. And once we, on our ride, you guys, it was the most painful ride. It was hard because every bump, every rut in the road, it was just horrible. It was horrible. And the pain just escalated. It kept escalating. And I was like, oh my God. So it was like my husband's trying to go fast to get me there, but then he had to slow down because I was in so much pain. So as we approached the hospital, you know, we got out and he got out or someone came to the door to meet us. And once he got to the door, he was asking all these questions. And I was like, look, I don't know what's going on. I'm supposed to have my child here. I had everything already set up with the hospital. And he was like, okay. So once we got to the desk, there were so many questions. And I was like, look, my name is in the system. I've already signed up. Everything should be there. But it just felt like no one was listening. Eventually, everything checked out and we were able to move up to the maternity floor. And once we got in there, I remember this young lady was coming to, you know, try to get the IV in and all these different things. And I remember her poking me literally probably 30, 40 times trying to get a good spot. And I know that I always have this one good arm that I can get blood drawing from, but it seems like she couldn't even get it in that. So I said, please get me somebody else in here. So I remember this other lady coming in and she was able to get the IV in pretty quickly. And they got me to a room and got me calm, to an area of calmness, but I could not. I remember having an urge to use the bathroom, but could not use the bathroom. And I remember they putting the catheter in on me, and I remember not being able to feel anything below my waist. I had to have help moving from spots because I couldn't lift myself. All of a sudden, I was just in this kind of a paralyzed moment. I was there and I remember just feeling like I was just there. You know, I didn't have any emotions hardly. I was just there. And so when we got there, it was 2 o'clock that morning. And I remember my doctor, my doctor that I was seeing, her office was connected to the building of the hospital. So she was not far at all. And she came over a few times before, and she just, you know, she checked me out and everything. And then eventually, I think closer to like 3 o'clock, I want to say, in that afternoon, she they induced my labor. So they broke my water. And once they broke my water, of course, I still had to dilate a little bit more. But, you know, eventually, it didn't take long. Eventually, it was time to deliver. So when she came over, I had my son. He was healthy baby. But she realized immediately that my stomach was still extended, and she just knew something was off. She knew that something was not right. So she took very quick precautions on everything. Blood work, my iron was extremely low. My blood was low. Everything was just not right. She was very concerned. She stayed on high alert. She did ultrasounds and everything to kind of see what was going on. Before having the ultrasound, I remember her saying, look, we might have to get into surgery and see what's going on. But she did the ultrasound, I think later that day, to kind of just see what was going on. And I remember them doing blood transfusions. And once they had done the blood transfusions, I started to feel better. My husband, I remember him telling me, he said, you just looked horrible, like all the blood was drained from your face. To hear that after the fact was pretty scary, but I think going through that, I just didn't have very much emotion. I was just there. And I remember just being quiet in my spirit. I remember just, Jesus help me, you know. And throughout my whole entire pregnancy, I had been praying over my unborn child and praying over myself. Just asking the Lord to cover me and to protect me, because, you know, during pregnancy, you guys, so many times we research things, we hear things, we see different stories of women in labor, and it was a lot of things that were kind of circling around me at that moment. So I was just praying constantly my entire pregnancy over me and my child, just asking the Lord to cover us, to protect us and watch over us. And so I think once I did the blood transfusion again, like I said, I felt better. But my doctor still proceeded to do everything that she needed to do. And I remember her coming to me saying we might have to have emergency surgery. And I was like, you know, and it kind of felt like, I don't know, when she said it, it kind of felt almost as if she was saying it was an option, or that it was something that was a possibility. So like I said, once I got the blood transfusion, I thought things were good. And the next day, I remember her coming in ready, very ready, with her purse on her shoulder. And she was like, look, we're going to surgery. And I was like, huh? So immediately I'm afraid, because I've never had surgery before, and it was just, everything's just happening so quickly. She's like, we got to get you in surgery. And I said, okay. So I remember the nurses, everyone coming in to get me and taking me out, and I was in the hallway. I remember having a car. My husband was on one side, the doctor, and then the anesthesia, the guy that was going to do the anesthesia came up. And, you know, he assured me that everything would be great, you know, that he has never had an issue, that I would not have a problem, any of those things. And so, you know, I found comfort in what he was telling me. I found comfort in my doctor, because I'm like, what is really happening? This lady came in here with her purse on her shoulder, and I was just nervous in that moment. But I had done what I could do, and that was just, I had already prayed and given it all to God, you know. And so I remember taking off my glasses, handed them to my husband, and the anesthesiologist had, you know, administered the medicine and all. And so I remember going through those doors, getting picked up, transferred to the table. Before I got to the table, I was out. I don't remember anything after that. But and then surgery went well. I had a ruptured vessel, and my husband said between the uterus and I think one of the I think it was between the uterus and another, I can't think of the name, but it was ruptured vessel there. And my doctor told me that blood was spewing out, told my husband that blood was just spewing out everywhere once she got in there. So she was able to go in and to solve the issue, and she took care of me. You guys, when I say that was, it was God. It was God. My husband told me that once the doctor came out and they were on the elevator. And so during this time, you guys, let me say this really quick. My husband's grandmother, she had already been sick, and she passed in all of this transition. And I don't know, I just felt like the angels were there with me. I really do. I felt like the angels from someone praying for me. Someone really was praying. People were praying for me. And I know my husband was, and I know he was scared, because we had 2 other children, and then he's having to monitor the small one that we just had. But his grandmother passed, and he and his grandmother was extremely close. And she and we shared the same birthday. And I remember my husband saying my doctor mentioned that if you would have taken your wife home, if you guys were to have left, because normally you leave the hospital within 2 days. If I didn't stay, and she said, if you were in a hurry and y'all went home, things would have been good. When I tell you, you guys, God is good. And all I can think back on is, maybe not immediately, but as time went on and I recovered, I got home, I was able to leave the hospital the next day, and I was able to go home. I felt so much better. I thank God for the support of people that he sent our way. My mom came down. My friend, I had a friend in Houston that I had made since I've been there. She and her daughter came. My father-in-law came. And then my sister-in-law the day before. So we had friends that were able to help out to get the 2 older children, to kind of get them away from the hospital a little bit. So when I say I'm thankful for everyone who was there and who came to support and showed up, I'm so thankful. As time had gone along, you guys, I realized that I always think about if I had not been obedient to the will of God, if I had been obedient to the voice of God, the Holy Spirit speaking to me to get another doctor. Because truly, you guys, sometimes I know for me, I have ignored some signs. I've ignored when I felt that I needed to do something. And it would have been one of those cases years ago, before even having our last child. If I would have heard that voice, if I would have heard that concern, I probably would have proceeded with that same doctor. But as time grows and we become closer with the Lord, and we start meditating in his word and spending time in his word and asking him to use us, and just continue to pray and to seek his face, the Lord will show us things, and he will make things so loud that we can't ignore them. Father, I thank my Father in heaven that I did not ignore his voice. I did not ignore him when he told me to get another doctor. And it wasn't because the other doctor wasn't good, but he knew who I needed at the time of all of these things going on. And he used that doctor, you guys. He used her to save my life and to give me a better quality of life. I'm so thankful for the voice of God. I'm so thankful to be here today to tell you guys this story, to share this story. And if you're watching, I hope and pray that you guys will, maybe not the same situation that I'm in, but if there's situations where you're hearing something or this voice, or you're just feeling like you should do something opposite of what you were going to initially do, listen to that voice, because God does not fail us, you all. He does not fail us. He does not turn his back on us. He does not hurt us. And I'm telling you this because this is my testimony. And this is only one of the testimonies that God has, of things that the Lord has done in my life. And I know it's him, because if it was me, it might have been the other way. I might not be sitting here to tell this story. I hope and pray that this really touches your heart. If you know anybody that you believe should hear this, please send it to them, forward it to them. You know, and again, obeying God is better than sacrifice. The Lord knows who he has and who he wants on our path, on our journey of life. And I'm so grateful to that doctor. I remember sending her a card out after about a year or two, because it kept on coming to my spirit like, Lord, thank you for that doctor. She was who I needed. She was exactly who I needed and who God ordained to be on this journey in my life. And I'm so thankful. You guys, I hope that this has been a blessing to you all. And I will see you guys in the next video. I love you guys. Bye.